Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, y'all, you might recall that a while back, AOC grabbed headlines in trademark fashion by wearing a custom tax-the-rich dress to party with elites at the Met Gala. Not wanting to prejudge, at the time I said the dress was either a textbook example of cosplay and class politics to make elites feel virtuous while posing no actual threat, or it was a savvy use of celebrity and access to carry a subversive message. It would all depend, I said, on AOC's actions. Would she upset the apple cart of power or enable it? Well, now we have the absolutely final definitive answer, because we just learned that at the same time AOC was at the Met Gala with her performative and ultimately completely harmless display, she was abandoning Amazon workers who were actually in the fight, challenging the billionaire class in a meaningful way with their jobs on the line. So here's the full story of what exactly is going on. There is an outside chance that the labor landscape could be completely remade this week, with profound impacts for blue-collar and service workers across the country. This week, we are expected to get election results in 2 separate union elections at Amazon warehouses. There's a redo election in Bessemer, Alabama, and there's a brand new effort to organize workers at a large Amazon warehouse on Staten Island, which is called JFK 8. Amazon's impact on the nation's workers is profound. 1 out of every 153 workers is an Amazon employee. That means that the employer has tremendous impact on wages and working conditions and unionization rates, not just for their own workforce, but for the entire nation. In a sense, even though union efforts at Amazon have thus far failed, these courageous worker organizers, they've already had some measurable impact. Amazon has recently launched a major PR push to improve the image of how they treat their blue-collar workforce, and they have upped their wages and some benefits over the past year, along with reaching a settlement with the NLRB, which required them to notify workers of their rights to organize. But in spite of these changes, made under duress, Amazon continues to be a drag on wages and conditions for workers nationwide. This is why this fight matters so much. When Amazon talks about their wages, they like to compare their starting wage of $18 per hour roughly to the federal minimum of $7.25 and to low-paid service sector jobs like those at fast food restaurants or retailers. From that perspective, yeah, Amazon work looks pretty good. But warehouse work has long commanded solid middle-class wages and decent benefits, much closer to factory work than to retail. As Amazon seeks to turn warehouse work into just another McJob, they are dragging down standards for workers across that entire industry. In other words, if all was well with American workers, service work standards would be getting pulled up to match the solid wages of logistics and factory work, creating another pathway to a stable middle-class life. Instead, logistics work is getting pulled down by Amazon to meet the precarity of the vast service sector, dimming the prospects for workers nationwide. In fact, according to a Government Accountability Office report a few years back, Amazon had more workers on food stamps than any other American companies, save for Walmart, McDonald's, Dollar Tree, and Dollar General. What's more, research shows that when an Amazon warehouse opens, wages drop for all warehouse workers in the county and take 5 years just to get back to where they were before Amazon decided to come to town. So an example of that, in Robinson, New Jersey, warehouse workers were making $24 per hour before Amazon showed up. Afterwards, that average wage had plummeted nearly 30% to $17.50. Simply put, Amazon workers get injured more and paid less than other warehouse workers, and the company is destroying the standards of the whole industry, closing one more path to stability and dignity for workers right at the time when logistics has become completely central to the American economy. That's why these labor fights are so critical beyond Bessemer and beyond Staten Island. They are truly the front line of the war to give workers back their humanity. No war but class war, as they say. Come as no surprise to you, the media has been largely silent about both of these new efforts after receiving significant political and media attention. The new vote in Bessemer has flown almost completely under the radar. You might think that it would be a big national story that one of the nation's largest and most influential companies cheated so blatantly that they were forced to redo a union election. The corporate media doesn't choose which stories to cover based on what matters, preferring simply to push whatever storylines happen to fit their narratives. The Staten Island Amazon election is, if anything, even more significant. New York is the most pro-union state in the country. Workers are employing a novel strategy of organizing using a brand new worker-led union. Friend of the show, Chris Smalls, is leading this effort, and his story is nothing if not compelling. Amazon fired him, you might recall, for daring to speak out about their lack of concern for workers during COVID. Top executives, including Bezos, were then caught attempting to smear him as, quote, not smart or articulate, deploying the most thinly veiled racism and classism of all time. Now, against all odds, Chris has spearheaded a brand new union, collected enough signatures at 2 different New York locations to trigger union elections. In other words, Amazon dramatically underestimated this man who has now pulled off what other established unions in New York failed to do by even bringing unionization to a vote. But what is much more profoundly disappointing, for me at least, is that the most reliable pro-union voices in Congress, they've not just been silent, but they have truly betrayed this movement. As I already mentioned, this includes AOC, but also includes Mondaire Jones. They both represent organizing New York Amazon workers. And even Bernie Sanders himself, much as it pains me to say it, when Kyle and I recently spoke to Chris Smalls, he reluctantly shared how one after another, these politicians broke their promises to show up for Amazon workers on Staten Island, turning their backs on perhaps the most critical labor effort in the entire country.
So we had politicians cancel on us the day before our rallies. AOC, who else? Mondaire Jones, people I spoke to in person and personally invited them to come to Staten Island to talk to their constituents. They have people that work there in their district, to try to help, gain some support. We had no politician from the left or the squad show up yet. I met Cori Bush as well. There's pictures of all of us there. We stayed on the steps. I brought them food. I brought them AOU shirts. I had workers with me, 4 workers with me. We tried to convince them to come up here. AOC was real excited about it. She was like, yeah, I'm there. Take my information. Talk to all their staffers. I met with their team several times. I had like 3 meetings over Zoom or whatever we was talking on. Leading up to our rally, everything was good. And then the last second, it was like, they can't. They can't make size. They said it's a security threat for AOC. And I'm like, I was just sleeping on the steps where in D.C. She had no security where she had maybe 1 person there or whatever. But it didn't make any sense because they said they canceled all her in-person meetings for the rest of the month. And then a couple of weeks later, she had the Met Gala. So I'm like, okay. I knew.
That's devastating. That's a devastating point.
Listen, I can't get into their heads and tell you why one after another they backed down on their promises, why AOC found the time to gallivant in a tax-the-rich dress with elites, but couldn't be bothered to show up for one of the most important efforts to actually threaten the wealth and power of the billionaire class. How the left more broadly has collapsed into Twitter wars and performative displays over any real attempt to do anything. Now, there are exceptions to this, no doubt. Shout out to Jordan Sheridan, Max Alvarez, Jonah Furman, Kim Kelly, and a lot of others who've gone above and beyond to report on these efforts. And look, there is no doubt these union drives, they're a long shot effort. But when the labor movement's supposed fiercest allies can't be bothered to show up or speak out, you end up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not to mention, as I mentioned, we've already seen how just the credible threat of unionization has forced Bezos and co. to make some concessions to workers already. There is no reason that the Amazon union drives could not spark a nationwide domino effect, just as the Starbucks effort has. But unfortunately, as Amazon has quietly set about destroying what's left of the middle class, a self-obsessed left can hardly be bothered to notice or to stand with those who would fight back. And it kind of says it all, Sagar. You can find the time to wear the dress at the Met Gala, but you go back on your promises.
Hey guys, we're gonna be totally upfront with you. This is the most perilous time that we have ever operated in.
It is so difficult just to try to sort through the news, but even more importantly, to bring you accurate information as this wave of lockdown and censorship spreads across the nation.
Yeah, look, if you can become a premium subscriber today at breakingpoints.com, you're gonna help us build out a vibrant, independent media ecosystem, which is free of mainstream pressure. We can't tell you how important that is at a time like this.
Yep, that's right. Go to breakingpoints.com to subscribe. We love you guys and we appreciate you so much.